Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Peanut Butter and Jelly. Here's what I mean by that. Ballpoint marketing and Call Porter go together so well, they are like peanut butter and jelly, or Ross and Rachel, or chicken and waffles, maybe even spaghetti and meatballs. Here's the deal. You have ballpoint marketing send out your mail. You put a phone number on that piece of mail. That phone number is going to reach Call Porter. Our 100% US based phone reps are going to answer that phone call. They're going to process and qualify the lead. They're going to integrate with your CRM, and they're going to book appointments on your calendar. Doesn't get any better than that, folks. Boom.
Cool. Easy enough. Love it. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Next Deal podcast. Today, we are joined by my co-host, Vince, as always, and Colton Fast. Colton, how are you doing today?
Doing very well. How are you guys?
Fantastic.
Awesome.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is I love doing these. Obviously we've spoken. I love the chance to get on the record, talk about this stuff. I live and breathe it. So happy to put it out there for anybody else that might find anything in it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And to kind of start out, I'll do a little intro on you. So you've been in real estate for about 3 years now.
Yep, that's right.
Done about 85 deals or so, and you're just telling us you're in like 10 different markets now. So tell us a little bit about kind of where you're active and what you're doing right now.
Yeah, so we were Phoenix primary, wholesaling for a long time, and then a long time, I guess, is relative, but wholesaling for our first, 40 deals or something, and then started to get confident, I would say, in our ability to underwrite. We felt like we could take title and we weren't going to lose. We would put debt on the properties. We were flipping houses. We got confident at the absolute worst time as far as the market's concerned, and especially in Phoenix. So we definitely still made some money flipping houses, but the market was not accommodating for the last couple of years. So recently taking my foot off the gas on funding stuff, and I'm wholesaling more than I was previously. I'm back to wholesaling more. So we're Phoenix only, and I was really set on that. I want to go deeper in my market. The math was like, there's 800 or whatever it is. There's 800 investor transactions in this county every month, and I'm doing 4, 5, 6. The most I've ever done is 13 in a month. So obviously there's plenty of market share for me to continue to go deeper in this market. But in the last several months, it's been so difficult, and the horde of wholesalers here has, descended upon 2 very small lead pools. And it's just become extremely competitive, hyper competitive in an already competitive market. So we thought that it was in our best interest to go an edge deep and a mile wide across 10 different markets. So that's what we've done in the last, I think it's only been 6-7 weeks. But we launched into within a few days of making the decision, we launched into 6 or 7 different markets. And so we've been active there, and seeing results, seeing more success than we were previously in Phoenix. That's for sure.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah.
I remember when you, where we met at Collective Genius, you were speaking about potentially going into those markets. So you actually made that decision. What did that kind of look like for deploying that into multiple markets before?
So SMS is obviously on the fritz a little bit, but we were, so we were heavy in SMS. And so it's really easy. It's really low barrier to entry to text these markets. It's also pretty low barrier to entry to call. So that's what we were doing. The decision is to pull public record data and start to text and call it. We already have the infrastructure. We already have the systems. We already have everything. So it's not like we have to pop up a whole new business for every market. It's been good. I mean, within a few days, it was everything we do. I always say it proves them. Even if I don't see the results I fully want to see, I always say it proves the model. So for me to get a lead in Florida within a few days of attempting to proves the model that I can, right? So then how many times can I? And then same thing in Texas and in, wherever. So, that gives you just those little wins. I feel like just continue to give you the fuel to keep going on some of that stuff. But the approach has been, I keep telling people it's a lean startup model approach. I'm trying to get minimally viable in 15 or 20 different markets, put something out there that can give me some sort of data feedback, and then I'm either going to invest more into the markets I'm seeing results, or I'm going to invest less and cut them off. So I'm looking to, as quickly as possible, perform and gather data and then pivot.
Awesome.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Vince.
Yeah. I was just going to kind of backtrack with, your Phoenix market, and you saying that it's, been kind of getting a little bit saturated. There's a pretty well-known real estate coach out of Phoenix. Does that have anything, do you think, to do with it, where all these wholesalers are, kind of trying to go gung-ho? Do you know who I'm talking about?
There's several. I mean, I'm happy to name names, but I could rattle off at least 5, 6, 7 guys that are, gurus and coaches in the space. But,
you can mention names. I'm not going to fight you, Vince.
we have everybody. I mean, we have Steve Trang, we have Brent Daniels, we have Jerry Norton, we have a number of others.
And they're all part of the Wholesaling Rhino Tribe. Yeah.
Oh yeah. And Doug Hopkins, you keep going, and we've got some of the Pace Morby, we've got some of the biggest names in the industry. And I don't think that I'm necessarily, there is a ton, there's 1.7 million houses in Phoenix, in Phoenix Metro, and there's 5 million people. I don't think I'm necessarily, and I have before. I've bumped into them on deals. I've lost deals to them. I've won deals against them. I don't think I'm necessarily competing with these guys in their businesses as much as head to head, as much as but I do think that there is a drive in the locality for, young wholesalers, especially to, it's a decentralized effort to, hammer the Phoenix Metro. And I think that's more of what affects the competitiveness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you noticed because we noticed this, like, it was probably about 1.5 2 years ago here in St. Louis, because St. Louis is not nearly as big as Phoenix by a long shot. Like you said, over 1 million households. And I'm like, I think we have like 200,000 like in St. Louis Metro
I think it's
area.
a little bigger than that.
Yeah, it's probably
something like that.
But we noticed an issue that we would run into, where we would be at these deals and running up against newer wholesalers that are, 20% higher than they should be on deals.
That's the problem.
Yeah. So I figured it's probably the same problem everywhere as that happens, as you're overbuying on these properties, and then contracts are falling out, and then now that person has a bad taste in their mouth, which then causes more problems.
Yeah. So I think that what happened recently with the interest rates skyrocketing so quickly as well is what that it's I think maybe something of an obvious problem, but we had to experience it for ourselves to really feel it and see it, and then have to pivot from it. And that's what this is. I mean, every freaking month it's a new pivot. It's a new something. It's a new, what I feel like I've had to rebuild my marketing 15 times, and I'm going to do it another 15.
Something to adjust always. Yeah.
Always. Yeah. So it's a little bit of a tangent, but
go into it, man. This is what this is about. Like,
yeah. I will. But what I want to say is, when the interest rates skyrocketed like this, and when I'm talking about, hyper competition on certain lead pools in Phoenix, owner occupants largely are off the table. And that is the vast majority of households. And the reason is because if someone's in, like, I've got a house over here, I've got 309 on it at 3% flat, and my monthly payment is $1,743. If I was going to take that same 300 in debt and put it on, if I was going to rebuy that property today, the debt against it was what, like 2,700, 2,800, something like that, at 7.5%, 8%. So the point is, these owner occupants are not going to leave their $1,700 payment to buy the same house across the street for $1,100, $1,200, $1,300 a month more.
Oh, yeah.
So that was the conversation we were having with every owner occupant we were talking to. It was, where am I going to go? And the answer was, and my answer was like, I shrugged my shoulders, like, good question.
Yeah. We've run into that same, like, even with ourselves, with our primary residence, because we bought a house, I don't know, right before COVID. I think it was like 2019 actually. And like, we got it at like 187, which was already below market value, and it's probably worth like 400 now.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I could take that equity and roll it into, a nicer, bigger house, but I'm also going to pay 4 times what I really want to when I'm sitting at 3.5%, like,
Yeah.
we refinanced, I think the week before interest rates started going up. And I was like, I'm so glad we refinanced now.
Yeah.
Didn't wait.
It's exactly the same thing Susie and I are talking about with, where our interest rates are now. So
yeah,
it's like you don't want to do anything with it.
Yeah.
Like
There's
when you have a 2.3% interest rate, it's like, I'm not touching that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Meme culture, Instagram. There's the meme floating around. It's like when the first time home buyer bought their starter home, but now they realize that it's their forever home.
Their forever home. Yeah. I also like
my first house I ever bought was in 2007, like literally when everything went down with that real estate crisis, and I had to keep that house. I think it was like 12 to 15 years before I could sell it to actually like feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah. So this house I'm in now, we moved up so I bought this like, seriously, when I say that we started to get confident and started to like actually fund houses for the first time, really, it was the worst time ever. It was like they started raising interest rates in May, June of 22.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That is exactly when I think we funded like $3 or $4 million for the real estate, so like, and we went 0 to 100. Right. So, business was good. We were making money, and, the team was growing. Everything was great. We like just roll everything more, bigger. And this particular house, we bought it. It was originally underwritten to spend and this is what we were doing. This was going to spend 10,000, and it was underwritten for a net projected profit of 67. And by the time that it was done and out for market, it sat on market for 60 days. And the best offer we had was to lose like 35 grand.
Oof.
So that was a 90 something $1,000 swing in underwriting in a matter of 2 or 3 months. And that's what was happening at the time. Here in Phoenix, because things got so hot so fast, and then they cooled so fast. So instead of taking that loss, I said, I'll take that loss over time. And we moved up the street into it. So I've been living here since last February. We just finished our refinance like 2 weeks ago, and it's ugly. So I'm just going to carry it right until I can refinance. I'm going to probably pull $1,500 a month, $2,000 a month out of my payment when I'm able to refinance. So
yeah,
it's not the end of the world, but it's ugly right now.
Yeah, not what you were hoping for, I'm sure.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah.
It's $5,100 a month. I'm carrying $5,100 a month in PITI on this house until I can refinance, and I think I'll get to low 3s or something, which is obviously much more manageable.
But little bit better, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So you started in this business about 3 years ago. What got you into it? Like, what was I know a lot of people have a similar story. They read Rich Dad Poor Dad, or found a podcast or YouTube or something. But I always like to know, like, what was kind of like your driving factor to get into real estate?
It's funny. I've told the story a few times. It was really my brother.
Okay.
My brother was in real estate for 3 years before I joined him. And we were at a casino for a buddy's wedding, and he pulled some money out to gamble, and he says, "You want to see something?" And he turns over the deposit or the withdrawal receipt, and he had something like $85,000 in his checking account or something. And I was working W-2. I had a good job. I was making close to 100 grand. And it was like, I've never even sniffed anything close to that. And my brother's 2 years younger than me. And not only did he have that cash, he had $600,000-$700,000 in rental properties too. So it was like, I always felt like I was missing the boat. So it was his success that really drove me to make the jump. And I bounced out of corporate America, cold turkey, never had done a day in my life in real estate. Bounced out, and on a Monday or something, and on the next Tuesday, like the next day, I was full time in this game, and I was generating leads and learning more than anything.
Yeah.
So that's what mine looked like.
So we like to talk family life and things. So jumping out of corporate, how did your wife take that? What was that, conversation like, hey babe, I'm doing this,
That
how did that
was,
go?
so my wife was a business owner as well at the
Okay.
time. We owned 2 coffee shops. Well, one at the time. She owned it with her business partner. My father-in-law is their consultant. He's a businessman. He was with Walmart. He actually came up under Sam Walton. And then he opened a chain of convenience stores. I think they had 43 locations or something. So I married into this business family. And so they very much understood, and I didn't. So this is new for me. In my family, everyone's always worked. Everyone's always, had a more traditional path. And I always felt like entrepreneurship was I didn't know it, but now that I do, I realized that I knew it was for me, deep down.
Yeah.
So she took it well. She trusted me. She believed in me, and our lives are significantly different from taking the leap.
That's very cool.
Especially
having that background in the family too, because we're not nearly the same, but like our dad was always an entrepreneur growing up. Like always ran his own business, and it kind of gave my brother and I like that spark of like, I want to do my own thing. I don't know what the hell it is. Like I have no idea what this is going to be, what it's going to turn into, but I want to do that. And I think for us too, it showed us like what we didn't want to do. And, because our dad, he actually works with us now at Ballpoint. But when he started, he was like everything in his business and could not get out of that trap of being the only person of sales, installation, accounting, marketing, like literally everything. So it kind of like showed us like what we didn't want to do and how we wanted to get into it. But it was funny when going back to how your brother got you into this. I'm very similar in that aspect of like, my brother and I worked in call centers for a long time, car warranty sales actually, which is like the most soul sucking job you could ever do. And he had left at some point because I think his last boss was like, he was like the top salesperson in this company at this point, and he made like $3,000. And the GM looked at him. He's like, "You're not worth more than $3,000. I'm not paying you more than $3,000." And he's like, "Cool, see ya, I'm out." And like started doing his real estate stuff. And it was like, for me, it had gotten to the point where I hated what I was doing, and I saw what he was doing, and like similar stuff. I was like, "You made $12,000 on a deal, and you spent like an hour worth of time. Like, what? How did you do this?"
Yeah.
And that's how Call Porter got started on his own. And I got to the point where I was like, it's a lateral move kind of for me, like I'm taking a pay cut, but I can leave and go run a call center that I'm familiar with and start learning that experience stuff too. So it's kind of funny. But yeah, to Vince's question, my wife kind of freaked out a little bit when I told her I wanted to leave. And ultimately, like, she was super supportive because she knew I was just miserable doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And was able to leave. So, yeah, that's funny. Very, very similar.
Yeah, that met me.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say that met me. The opportunity to join my brother in this business met me at the same time that, and this was a common theme throughout my life, I was butting heads with my boss.
Yeah,
and so it was not every year, but in school it was a teacher maybe once a year, every other year that I didn't get along with, and it didn't matter that I was 12. I was right and they were wrong, and I didn't accept it, So it was a coach at times. I obviously matured through much of that, but it was when I was younger, there was that theme. And that's why I say, like, come to find out or come to realize that this was always for me, because you hear that same story from everybody, most people who have come out here into the wilderness to make a living for themselves.
Well, that's funny too. You mentioned like it was kind of like a recurring theme for you.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm my wife and I, and we're kind of into like, when there's something that's meant for you, like it's going to keep smacking you over the head until you accept it and actually like go in on it and realize that same thing. Like that's how I left too. I was like, I wasn't getting along with my boss. I had asked for a raise and got denied. I was stressed out, like drinking way more than I should have to deal with stress, which just makes things way worse anyway. And yeah, so it was really funny. But I was like, it was finally the point where I was like, all right, I think I'm going to actually go do something now and like just try it. And if I fail, fuck it, I'll figure it out. Hopefully I won't. But there's not failures enough to not be out of business, but failures along the way to learn from, for sure. That's been a big learning curve for me.
Millions and millions in lessons learned over the last couple of years is what we always say. I learned I lost I think it might be the first deal I've ever truly lost at the closing table, but I lost a $30,000 deal last week. And it was like, let's go look at this and analyze everything that happened here, every phone call, how did this happen? And what, of course there are factors outside of our control, but what was in our control that we failed on?
What'd you guys find?
Yeah.
We gave in to the seller's process more than keeping him in ours. So we found ourselves, we gave up on some sales principles that we should have maintained through the process. So when a seller says, I don't want to do this or I don't want to do that, then what we should have said is, okay, then what do you want to do? And okay, I recommend you do that. If you think that's a better option for you, and push them towards what they think is a better option, because if it is, then they should do something different. But in this case, I have a new sales guy who handled, most of the transactions. So it's a training exercise for him. So
yeah.
Instead of saying, his name was Bo, instead of saying, Bo, if you think you can find, he was in foreclosure. And if you think you can borrow the money, if you think you have options, if you think you need to call the bank, then I recommend you do. I think you should call the bank, see what they have to say for you. And then, call us back if there's something there to do. And we should have said that, right. And pushed him away and continued the sales process that we maintain with everybody.
Yeah.
But instead we said, oh no, we're the best option for you. You need to keep working with us. You don't have any other options at this point. And, you need to, and we created a pressure, something of a pressure sale, not something that we try to do, but in this instance, we created like a pressure type of sale that ultimately didn't work out. This guy lost his house to foreclosure. We were 3 signatures away from closing this deal, and we couldn't get it done. Couldn't get him to the closing table. And so he got foreclosed on 2 hours later. We were under contract at $250. 3 hours later, the property sold at auction for $320.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's wild.
That one hurt.
Yeah. No kidding. Especially with that, like that close to the timing too, like just literally down to the wire.
We were trying to close it for 3 weeks. We even got his signatures, and we collected all sorts of payoffs. I mean, we went through everything to get the deal done. This guy was like, he did $100,000 worth of home improvements while not making his mortgage payments. So he had liens from the gutter company, from the solar company, from everybody. And there was more every day that we didn't close this deal. We knew that more liens might pop up. So we were trying to actively close this deal for 3 weeks, and it just was the most difficult deal I've ever been a part of, and we ended up losing it.
Man.
So another $30,000 in lessons learned.
What was he trying to do? Just fix the house up and hopefully sell it? That was he?
No, he was in denial about. He was just having a really hard time. Yeah. He was just in denial about the entire situation. He didn't. No matter how many times we explained it to him, he didn't understand what it meant to be foreclosed on. And so, we laid it out for him like, this is going to destroy your credit. You're not going to be able to buy another house for 7 years. You're going to be removed from the house anyway. So we'll give you we can either give you some money and a golden parachute out of the house. And we found a way to give him $21,000. That's what he was going to walk away with. So you can have a golden parachute and time to live in it, to find a new place to live with that money in hand, or this thing's going to go at auction and whoever comes along and buys it's not going to be as nice as us.
Not going to be as friendly. Yeah.
And you're not going to get that money. So you have two bad options, but ours is better. And that's, that's some of the sentiment that we have for people that are facing dire foreclosure situations is like, I don't have a magic bullet and I didn't do this to you. Right. But you have several bad options. And from a place of like truly trying to guide you to your best one, it's hard to do. I know it is, but please choose your best bad option. And that is what I'm presenting to you.
Yeah. It's like you can lead them to the water, but you can't force them to do anything.
That's exactly what this was.
Like,
that's exactly what this was.
That's hard. I haven't come that close with somebody, but I have had one deal in particular this year that I did here in St. Louis, actually, was just like extremely challenging to get across the finish line. It was somebody who was like not good with tech at all. So like any contracts that were signed, he couldn't find them. Then I'd show up, look at his phone, and it's the first email on his phone. He's like, "Oh, I didn't see it."
Yeah.
Like literally happened like 4 times, and I drove out each time. I'm like, I know it's there. I saw it last time. He's like, I don't see it. I can't find it anywhere. And it was like, at closing, we had like a specific time and like couldn't find the door, or the building where it was at. Like just all these little things that add up. And
totally.
But it was also like this guy he wasn't in that type of scenario, but he was also someone who was like, he'd been there since the 80s. And like raised his kids there, like didn't want to move on, but had to, you know what I mean? And it was kind of one of those things that like just took extra hand holding and time and energy to make it happen, and a lot of patience as well. But yeah, I mean, sometimes, people don't ultimately want to help themselves the way you want to help them.
That is the unfortunate reality.
And that's challenging, especially for people that like to help.
Well, and that, and that guy in particular, and some people, right, are just so untrusting. They, for whatever trauma has accumulated in there, because we all have our own, right?
Yep.
So for whatever trauma has accumulated in their lives, they just can't trust anyone for anything. And this gentleman in particular, no matter, and that's what we aim to do, right? Like we need to get, so rapport is shallow and trust is deep. And we go through rapport to get to trust. And that's how we get deals done. At the end of the day, how do you say this? How do you say that? It's like, there's no perfect one-liner that's going to get your sale done. It's make a connection with that person and have them trust you, and you trust them, and work together to get a deal done. That, and this particular gentleman and others like him, it's so hard to build trust. Every time we would get back on the phone with him, it was like we had to completely rebuild this foundation of trust. And those are particularly difficult.
Yeah. Well, and one thing you said too, like that rapport is shallow and trust is deep. One thing that I notice a lot with sometimes with people on our team, but like even with my kids and stuff like that, like a lot of people have the gut reaction that they're listening just to respond, right? Like they're just listening just to like, well, what about this? Or what about this? What about this? And not listening to truly understand what's going on and then help with that scenario. Mm-hmm. And so it's a thing that we talk about a lot here is like, when we're talking to sellers or we're talking to people, or I'm talking with my kids or whatever it is, like, whenever you're listening, like just focus on what they're actually trying to say, not like prejudging what's coming out of their mouth and hearing half of the sentence, right? Because you heard the first part and you're like, I got a response, I'm ready. It's like, no, let's listen to the actual core problem and see how we can help out, which I think helps build that trust long term with people.
Yeah. That's I say that too. Like it happens in high stakes conversations a lot, right? Where two people start to get emotional and the conversation can start to elevate, and that exact thing happens all the time. It's like, are you listening? Are you waiting to talk? I'll ask people that sometimes in heated conversations. Are you listening or are you waiting to talk? Because those are two because you can see that their mouth like starts and starts and starts. Yeah. And it's like, I haven't even made my point yet. So there's no way you know what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
Or they're looking past you already. They're not even looking at you.
Checking their phone while you're talking. Like, I already know what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
I love
funny.
that rapport is shallow, trust is deep, though. That's going to be a reel for sure.
Love
I
that.
was
Love
gonna
that.
say that's I'm putting that into the training curriculum here.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
We say I mean, that's part of our language in our training. So there's a, I'll go down this rabbit hole for a second, but
Let's do it.
just on language, we have a shared language in our business, and it's not like we're super, super dialed, but to create a culture means to create a shared language. Or creating shared language is part of creating a culture. And two pieces, and I'm sure I'll think of some more as we go, but two things that we use often, I got three, is we say the road to trust runs through rapport, right? So that's one thing. And the next thing is we're always seeking to understand. I can't tell you how many times I say to my sales team throughout training, we are constantly seeking to understand. Like, you need to understand more. And until you have a complete understanding of somebody and their situation, and you can repeat it back to them and they can say, that's right, right? Like that's the Chris Voss, right? Then you're not there. You need to keep exploring. You need to keep seeking to understand until you have that. And the third piece of language that we use in our culture is we don't use the word problem, because we have plenty of problems, right? Like, hey, I have a problem. Hey, here's an issue. This came up. This is what we're dealing with. It's always, and I got this from my wife, but this is an opportunity. It's always an opportunity. And so I took that from my wife and I've applied it to the business. So whenever anybody brings me anything that's an issue, they don't say that it's an issue. They say, I know what it means, obviously, but they come to me and they say, we have an opportunity.
They're like, hey, there's an opportunity going on.
It immediately reframes the approach to being solution oriented. And from that moment on, you don't have any time to waste in dwelling on the issue. What are you going to do about any issue? You're going to solve it. So immediately we're looking at that.
Yeah. And almost like reframing I think is a good way to say it. You said that, but like it's almost preempting them to think of how we can solve this problem, right? Or this opportunity that came up, right? Like, what's the solution? How are we going to do it? And kind of have that proactive thinking, which is such an important thing when you're running a business and you have a team, is making sure that people are proactively helping and solving and growing through stuff.
Mm-hmm. And just on the call porter side of things, I always like to use training opportunity, right? So we have like hundreds of clients around the nation, and it's just a matter of time that sometimes the reps do unfortunately drop the ball. Like, it's, they listen to a conversation, they're like, hey, this was a fantastic conversation, however, why didn't they book an appointment at the end? And you're like, that's a really good question. We're going to make a training opportunity out of that, and send that over to the trainers at the call center so they can, tell this rep, hey, here's how we can do this better. But not just that one rep individually, but it goes to all the reps to understand, hey, this is why this appointment should have been booked, rather than just ending the conversation and saying, so-and-so will get back to you in 12 to 24 hours. So I always love to say to our clients, potential clients, when those issues do come up, I call them training opportunities as well, because it just sounds better than when a problem arises.
Yeah.
That's cool. What just out of curiosity, kind of going back to you being active in 10 markets, living in Phoenix, like, what does your team look like? I know we've talked a little bit about sales reps and things like that, but how is your team kind of organized and structured to be able to manage all of that?
So I have sort of 3 tiers and 4 departments that don't involve. I think we have 6 or 7 departments, but basically 3 or 4 of those departments is just me. So, we have, just like everybody, right? Marketing, lead management, sales, disposition, transaction coordination, project management, and then there's a CFO box, which includes HR, IT, and finance. And so I sit for basically everything. I'm accountable still, and I have extensions of myself in the departments in which I need them. So I have, in the marketing side, I have a data girl who pulls fresh data every single day, skip traces it, cleans it, constantly working on the data and keeping it up to date. She is great. And then I have 4 cold callers, or 3 cold callers. I will have 4. I'm actively hiring. And then we've cut off SMS recently. And then in the lead management space, I currently have 1 lead manager, and then I have 1 acquisitions manager. And so that's, the sales team largely. And then beyond that, I have a personal assistant who does whatever, anything. She's very tech savvy, and she can do whatever I need her to do. And then I have a Dispo TC type assistant. So that's where I say, they're kind of extensions of me into those departments. Because at the end of the day, I'm not looking at them like, you are accountable for the marketing that's happening. You are accountable for the leads. It's still me, as much as I'd like to have other people accountable for it.
Yeah.
If the leads aren't showing up, it's still me. It's still my fault.
It still falls on you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it kind of like, are you following kind of like the 10-80-10 rule with that, with like, 10% building out the framework of what needs to be done, 80% letting them roll with it, and then the other 10% verifying and checking that it's being done that way? Or, is it more involved for you?
It's more involved for me. And it's because of, there are pieces of it that are less involved. Like as far as cold calling goes, like they're better than me at it. Like I'm not in there changing the scripts and telling them how to cold call and all that stuff. Same with lead management, acquisitions. I'm involved when the opportunities present themselves. The way that I've been able to step out of that and still be involved is to take on Eric Brewer's underwriting call, where basically I'm working in close conjunction with my acquisitions manager when a deal is getting close. We're underwriting the opportunity together. He's, if he's in person, he will go to the car and call me, and I'll be at the control center looking at it, and, we'll decide what offer we're going to make. The reason that it's been difficult. So in corporate, I was an analyst for 7 years or something. So the reason it's been difficult for me to leave the data space entirely is because that part of that truly is my gold medal talent. Right. So I can find ways to win in the data that I can't just hire any old person to do.
Sure.
And that affects everything from the very top of the funnel all the way down. And so that's difficult for me to leave. Honestly, it's something I wish I would just spend all my time on, is marketing. But yes, I'm pretty involved. And then another thing I really enjoy is finance. I enjoy keeping track of the money and of course cash flow, overhead, all that stuff. Yeah. Playing CEO. So.
Okay. And I know you mentioned when we were chatting earlier, like you said, marketing and data is stuff you love to focus on. So in real estate, like what are some of the data trends or points that you're consistently looking at on a daily basis? Like what's your kind of focus when you're doing that? Because I'm like a analytical person as well, so I like to see patterns and trends and being able to adjust from there. So kind of curious how your process or what that looks like for you.
Yeah, so we've done a lot of different things, and we had to adapt, and that's where I say, every couple of months and with the market and with the environment, it changes. But we have, just along with most other people right now, have descended upon absentee owners and pre-foreclosures because nobody wants to sell, and anybody who wants to sell isn't going to because of the environment. The only people that are going to sell are those, except absentee owners, right? Because they don't have to find a new place to live. They get to sell their rentals or their second homes, and they don't need to solve that problem of where am I going to go? Yeah. Because that's a really difficult problem to solve right now. So currently I'm on absentee owners and I'm on pre-foreclosures, which that's the other lead pool. And that's, we have to sell type people. Yeah. At least some of them. And so when the market shifts back, we focus on all sorts of stuff, and we do data stacking. I've created my own system for scoring different types of vexations. If it's vacant, it's worth 2 points. If it's, got a code violation, it's worth 1. If it's, and then you stack all your data, sum it. And I have a master list of my top 100,000 prospects that I want to target.
That are all scored based off.
They're all scored. Yeah,
that's super cool.
Nice. See, that kind of stuff I can't do. I have to use like ChatGPT or something. Like, how do I do this?
ChatGPT is
How do I
so
build this?
cool with that right now. My brother was showing it to me. I'm still
It's wild.
chopping up spreadsheets myself, but my
I
brother was
know.
showing me some ChatGPT stuff. It's
Dude,
pretty
it's
cool.
Every
wild.
day,
Yeah.
Justin's got something about that. He's like,
Dude,
check
I
this
use it
out.
all the time now. It saved me so much time. And like they've got a new feature with it now where I've been using it for just understanding trends a little bit better, like in different markets in real estate. And like you could literally go to realtor.com or Redfin and look at like the summary reports, screenshot it, upload it, and say, analyze this for me. And it'll give you all the key points out of it. And like goes through that image, will analyze it and tell you kind of what it's seeing, the data that it's noticing, and what you're recognizing. So like I'm in I live in St. Louis, but I market in Louisiana, and they're pretty similar, like sized markets. St. Louis might be a little bit bigger, but that was something I did recently. Just out of curiosity, I was like, what are the differences between these two markets on days on market, sale trends, like all that kind of stuff? And like, it took like 10 seconds, to upload the stuff and spit all the stuff out. I'm like, I understand these two markets so much better now.
Excuse me while I write that down. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're good. Yeah, man, that's
That's what
I don't
I'm
think
doing
we've
over here when you talk.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I don't think we've said it on this podcast yet, but literally the logo for this podcast was made 100% by ChatGPT.
Yeah.
Like we just said like, here's what we're doing. Give me a couple options. And then I was like, well, it had like commercial buildings in the background. I was like, I don't really want that. We're going to talk more residential type stuff. So it was like most of our clients and people we're going to have on are going to talk about residential stuff. And then boom, it like came up with this, and it was like the third image, and we're like, that's it. This is fucking perfect. Like this is
Yeah.
I
awesome.
remember you sending that to me, and you're like, and I was like, yeah, green one, good, done, we're awesome.
Yeah.
Like so quick.
Yeah, it's wild. Are you using AI at all in your business?
I've used ChatGPT at like such a basic level.
Yeah.
I will have it like write me some sort of agreement or contract, and I'll have it write me a job description for this position, and then it'll give me the template, or write me a deed of release for a deed of trust on a property. Write me this, write me that. I've used it at such a basic level like that, and I'll also ask it for legal advice at times, and I know that that's not
Right.
obviously the best thing to do, but it's basic stuff. So,
Yeah.
what my brother was here a couple weeks ago, and he's flipping land now, and he's kind of restarting a new business, but he's using it a lot. And so he was here a few weeks ago, and he first of all forced me to upgrade to ChatGPT for the pro version or whatever.
Yeah.
And then he was like just sitting at my computer, just throwing stuff in and making it do all sorts of stuff. And I'm not operating on that level with it, but I'm using it a bit.
Yeah. That's kind of how we are. Like I've been playing around with it a lot more. But it's funny. Like I'll look at other people that use it, like Drew Farnese, who's in CG as well. Like he uses it so much more, and some of the stuff he'll come up with, I'm like, I didn't even know you could do that. Like this is something I need to learn how to do. Yeah, it's been pretty cool to see though all the stuff that it can help with.
Yeah, there's something that I struggle with it is like, how do I prompt it to get what I want? And then there's all this guidance for super prompts. And my brother Logan is my brother's name. He's always sending me here's a new super prompt for you to get this type of result. I'm an expert in the handwritten letter space, and I would like to, tell me about how I can get the most engagement from my mail, and it just, well, Justin Dossie would say, like,
interesting. Yeah. So that's
Justin,
funny.
You know what you should have done with, we just had our ad and commercial meeting yesterday. You should have done all of yours with chat and said those are your own commercials. And then when Matt and Michael with Italium, you could be like, oh, those were AI.
I should have done that.
Hilarious.
Let me see. All right, I'm testing this, so if this doesn't work, we're going to cut it out. But I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let me see if I can make this work the way I want it to.
You can do. I saw one that was like, you are Elon Musk, and you're going to tell me about the best way to
build a rocket.
Yeah, whatever it was. And it was like, well, this is what Elon Musk would say. And then you're Robert Kiyosaki, and you're going to talk to me about, here's my financial situation. What advice do you have for me? Like,
interesting. I haven't got that specific with it, but can you guys see my screen on here?
Yeah.
All right. So this was one thing that we were playing around with for a little bit. And this entire postcard sequence that we created was all designed and built by AI.
Those are cool.
So we started with, so what I'll kind of do with ChatGPT is like, I'll explain what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to accomplish. But our first thing was like, hey, I want to send out postcards to real estate, people who own real estate. What are the top 6 reasons why someone might want to sell their property? Gave us the 6 reasons of why people are going to sell their property. So that gave us the different captions on, there's 2 images the same, but avoiding costly repairs. This is like more creative type deals, inherited or unwanted properties. So it basically gave us like the reasoning why people would want to sell. And then we asked ChatGPT to say, or to tell us like, hey, what imagery would go well with number 1? What imagery would correlate and relate to somebody with number 2, number 3, number 4? Had that, and then we used the DALL-E 3 integration in ChatGPT 4 and was like, make an image with this. And then all our graphic designer did was just adjusted the lighting, put the words on the way that they wanted to do. But dude, it took our 2 to 3 week process of like start of a product to having it done to like 36 hours max. And that's
cool.
Waiting for feedback from people, but it was pretty cool to see like how easily it came together and how it kind of like aligns with a lot of our other stuff that we've done, that we want it to have a theme. We want it to look good, stand out from everything else. That was pretty cool.
I should probably know this. Is the copy on the back AI too?
Yeah.
It is? Okay.
Yep, that too. So that's the other part. We also said like, give me a message. It has to be under 45 words to fit on this postcard. How would you relate this? Use those. Went through a couple variations on how we would communicate to a seller. But yeah, it was pretty cool.
That's so interesting. So obviously in the art and marketing, the creative space, AI and the power of it has the ability to displace potentially a lot of people who don't take advantage of it. Yes. And I found myself into a crevice of the internet one day where it said it was an AI generated post, and there was all these like, they seemed like creatives to me, and they were saying like, "Oh, we're done. Our industry, we're cooked. It's over for us. We're none of us are going to have jobs. We're all going to have to go find a job at Burger King or whatever." Yeah. And I just thought to myself, like, if you don't take advantage of this, absolutely,
totally.
But those of you who have the right attitude and utilize this and the power of it, unbelievable potential. Now, you're like, it just struck me so strongly for like, that is purely a mindset and an attitude shift that has to happen.
Yeah. And it's, someone talked about it at the last CG event. It's like, you either adapt or you don't stay in business. Like it's what it's going to come down to. And it's, to your point, like graphic designers, copywriters, like a lot of people in that industry, like it could be very scary for, but like for us, we have a full-time copywriter on staff that does social proof and all, emails and stuff online, all that kind of stuff. And like, we told them, we're like, dude, you can use this, like use it for the framework. It's
not cheating. Yeah.
No, like use it for the framework of your email and then make it sound like us. Like you're going to 10x your output and make yourself that much more valuable versus the people that are like, oh, hey, guy's going to take my job. I guess I'll just not do anything. And it's like, totally. Yeah, like you said, it's mindset, and for me, like, that's why I'm like, I just play with it every day. Like, what can I learn that I can do with AI or ChatGPT today, and how can it shorten and improve my day to day in business? Like spreadsheets I'm goodish at them, but it's like I had one that included like 4 tabs with all kinds of different data sets, and I was trying to compile something at the end, and I was like, I don't know how the hell to do this. And I was like, I'm using Google Sheets. Sheet 1 is this, sheet 2 is this, sheet 3 is this, sheet 4 is this. Here's the columns. Here's what I want. Give me a formula. and it took me like maybe 2 variations and it worked, and I was like, holy shit, like this is this is perfect. This is exactly what I want.
I'm gonna need to get that, but I feel like I would just dork around with it way too much.
Oh, you'll do that too. There's some real dumb questions in my Chat GPT history.
It's pretty unbelievable. I mean, it really is.
Yeah. I think I was showing my wife and my son on it the other day, and I was like, explain how a rocket works like I'm 5 years old. Like, and it does. It's like you have this crayon and this little figure. The crayon is the rocket, the figure is the scientist, and like literally walks through it. I'm like, well, it's actually kind of amazing that it will explain that complex process of how a rocket engine works literally to someone who's like 5 and help people understand stuff a little bit better.
So getting into, like chat being a tool, like what other, tools, tech, you talk about being a badass with Google Sheets and spreadsheets and things like that, but like what can you not live without? What has just been a game changer for you? Because I love hearing that kind of stuff. When we talk about this is the next deal podcast, like what has helped you to get that next deal, to make it a little bit simpler for you, easier for you, that kind of stuff?
I know it's not tech, and I hesitate to. I wrote it on the forum, but I know it's not tech, and I hesitate to even call it tools. But having the VAs that are just very specific to the tasks that they're being asked to do, and it's like having another hand. That is something that my business completely runs on. If my VAs all walked out the door today, nothing would happen. So it's again, I hesitate to say that they're tools, but for the business that, there's an aspect of that.
Resources.
They are, absolutely. And they have tasks and they're reliable. Things are repeatable. I don't have some things are extremely difficult to automate, obviously. And so to have the ability to automate a lot of manual tasks by, hiring virtual assistants has been huge. So that first and foremost, it's not a tech question, but it's not a tech answer, but
it's a system, it's a process though.
Yeah. Besides that, what else? I mean, we have a lot of integrations. We have a pretty robust set of systems. That is something that I was overbuilding from the very beginning of this business. I have a tendency to do that. And I even just more recently realized, like and I've been even saying to the team, it's like, I built a great car. This business works. And it's how I always have seen things. When I was in corporate, I always was trying to make the business basically a money printing computer. And when I came out here, I started to build my own, and I realized more recently I have a set of systems that will input data or input leads or input opportunity and output money. And all of the systems in conjunction, it's a little heavy. I have some redundancies, absolutely. But from the beginning of pulling data from county records to inputting it into multiple different systems, cold calling, Facebook leads, we don't do much for. I'm a full-time CMO right now. I'm a marketing guy until I fix my marketing, right? And so Facebook and cold calling is my focus right now. But to input that, to have my set of systems collect it, convert it to an appointment, convert it to an appointment completed, convert it to a contract, convert it to a deal sold, and at the end of the day, convert it to a closed deal where the money appears. It goes county data to spreadsheets to Salesforce and Ready Mode to back to Salesforce to Slack. And one thing I'm not very good at using is, I just looked down and saw the icon here is like ClickUp, which is like my Asana. It's my organizational tool. It's my task management. I am not good at using it. I have all these fancy softwares and all these things to help me do it. And I will just vomit a list of shit I need to do in no particular order. 100 things and then try to pick them off one at a time.
Uh-huh.
So
I've tried to use
I am straight up old school when it comes to tasks and lists in a lot of ways. I have a notebook and I just make a box and then I write it out and then I check the box off, and that's what keeps me like in the zone.
yeah,
And obviously we have the CRM and stuff for things, but yeah, like paper and pen, man, that's still my jam.
Dude, I get like ADD with it, where it's like I'll have like I'll use the Google tasks because we use like G Suite for everything here. So like I'll start there and then I'll be at my desk and I'll write a note on a sticky note of like I need to do this, I need to do this, and then I'll go to Google Notes or Apple Notes like on my phone and I'll put notes in there and I'm like, where did I put my notes on what I'm trying to do? I have it spread out in 3 areas and I always like, I don't know why, but I always like just forget that I was using this tool or this tool. And it's only one tool. All the other shit is just like paper or, something on my phone. But yeah, I'm not great at sticking with that.
Google Tasks piss me off. Like I feel like I try it and then it like will show up on your calendar sometimes, and then sometimes it doesn't, and you like got to be really specific on when you want it to remind you, and I'm just like, yeah, and then it just goes away, and I'm just I can't do it anymore. So I can at least look back on my notebook.
my whiteboard is gospel. I mean, and the other thing I do is I use Slack and I just message myself on there, and I use that as my mobile notepad because it's cloud based and I can get it anywhere.
Yeah.
So
that is a really good idea.
Yeah. So I message myself on Slack. It's where I keep, like, if you go, my Slack to myself is a gold mine of everything I've ever done for the last 3 years, basically.
Okay.
So if I ever need to go find something or do anything, I know it's in there somewhere. I go find it. So besides that, my whiteboard, I keep it handy. It's always current. I'm always keeping it up to date. And what will happen to me is entropy and things will spread out on me, and I'll lose track of all the chaos of all the things I need to do. And it affects me deeply. And my stress levels go up. I just become an unpleasant person. And what helps me come back is I need to go get organized, and I will come in here and lock myself in the room. And until I have a clear picture of, it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 things, as long as I know what they are and it's organized in my mind, I'm fine. I can do it. And it is 1,000 things. Right. But it's when I don't have the clarity. It's when I haven't taken the time to get organized and reorganized, because like you collect it and it's great. And it just starts to spread out as you hop back into the day to day and working on it all. Yeah. So I got to rein it back in and I feel okay again.
I'll have to, I'll do like, call it like an anxiety dump kind of thing. Like we can switch gears to some personal stuff here. But like if I'm stressed out, or cause I'm similar, I'm like, if I don't have my stuff organized on what I need to do, and I'm just thinking about it in like, the same 3 thoughts that keep going. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to do this, going back and forth. Like I'm very similar. I get grumpy. I get like annoyed very easily with stupid stuff, but like as soon as I write that shit down and get it out of my head, like I can focus on it a lot better and I stop ruminating on it. But yeah, that's kind of on topic, but I do want to switch gears and talk kind of like just some personal stuff with you guys. So you're wearing a Collective Genius hat, right? I have found I would not be where I'm at today without groups like that. Right. I would not have a business. I would not have a business that does more than like $80 a month. Right. without learning from other people. But was Collective Genius the first like kind of mastermind group that you joined?
Yeah. And I was really reluctant. My brother, so I worked with my brother for 2 years. We were business partners. And then I bought him out in December of 22.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've operated this whole year by myself. But my brother was like such a proponent of big reader. I struggle to focus. I do read, but I struggle to focus. My brother will sit down and plow 20 books, in a month. And so he's always a big proponent of standing on the shoulders of giants, right? And taking the lessons that others have learned and applying them to your buying time and buying time from others. And so I was reluctant. he was forcing me to find something to join. It was like we were going to explore all these things. We found Collective Genius online. We applied for like 3 or 4 different ones, I think, and the criteria we did not meet for Collective Genius for what I saw online.
Yeah.
But we applied anyway, and I wrote these long, detailed answers about why they should accept us and who we were, all this stuff. And when we got on the phone with Leon, he said, well, we actually have this other group. The criteria is not quite as high, the threshold. So you guys do meet that. And, within a month we had joined, or within a few weeks we had joined. And our first event was maybe a month after that. And our business just exploded. We called it the Great Awakening event. We did 270,000 our first year in business, and struggled mightily, just like everybody. Yep. And we went to Collective Genius for the first time January of 22, and we did we did almost $1.1 million in 22 on the back of having the lid removed is what I say. Like, it just showed me what other people were doing, and they just open their businesses to you and say, here's how you do it. Okay. Like, I was trying to reinvent the wheel for 1.5 years. So,
yeah. Like, I'm trying to figure this shit out on my own, and you guys have it. And that's what I love about like groups like that. Cause I'm in Collective Genius. I'm in another one called Powerhouse. That's for like e-com businesses. I've been in a ton of different masterminds over the years, but like it's wild to me, but also very cool that like people that are more successful than you want to see you win. Mm-hmm. They always do. Like, I don't think I've ever really had an instance where I've been in a group like that and gone to somebody that I look up to, or I'm like, hey, like, you're doing some crazy stuff that like, no, you can figure it out. Right. Like, I've never ran into that. And that's been my favorite part of being in groups like that, is just the amount of knowledge that you can get very quickly from people that have absolutely no problem sharing the deep insides of their business that you would need to know.
Yeah, it's knowledge, and it's just general support as well. Just like you just said, the people who want to see you win out here in the world, walking around, even old friends at times, they don't they don't want to see you win the same way that your new friends do.
Oh yeah, and I think it's because it reminds them of what they're not doing. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like kind of like a stinging reminder of like, well, Colton's passing me up by like leaps and bounds, or Vince is passing me, or whatever, and it's kind of like I've always like, the way I like to look at it is like, I've never been criticized by somebody who's above me, who's further along than I am. It's always been the opposite direction, right? Like, people aren't ready for you to move on or grow or move to that next level. They want you to stay with them and where they're at. And it's, kind of a comfort thing for them. But ultimately, like, that's my favorite part of these groups.
Yeah. And the sheer difficulty of these endeavors, I mean, only we really understand. Mm-hmm. And so, people see the checks that get posted on Facebook or whatever. I just closed $100,000 deal. Like, they're absolutely eye popping at times.
Yeah.
And it's the difference between the person who's going to comment and say, you rip somebody off for their equity and you're a scammer, and the person who's going to say, congratulations. Mm-hmm. I know what you must have had to go through to make that happen.
Yeah.
I'm sure you jumped many hurdles to get to the place where you've provided enough value to get a check like that.
Yeah. What, you said you were reluctant to join a group. What were you reluctant about?
Cost. I mean, okay. I wasn't looking at things through a value lens as much as I do now.
Yeah.
It's like, if I'm going to spend $100,000 on marketing and it's going to return to me $1 million, like, all day, I'm spending that right now. I Collective Genius was like, man, that's an expense with no direct monetary return. But the indirect monetary return has been, I wear the hat often. I wear it on podcasts on purpose. Yep. I'm a huge CG proponent.
Yeah.
I try to be a champion for this group. I mean, it has changed my business. It has changed my life. The value is so heavily unbalanced. Like, the value I've received for what I have paid is I don't know how to monetize or how to quantify it, but it's 100x. It's a lot.
Exponentially higher.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, very, very true. I know for me, it was like the first group I ever joined was, I don't even remember if we talked about this on the last one or not, but if I did, sorry if you're listening, it's just a repeat of last week. But it was a group called Project Nuclear, and wasn't for real estate, it was actually mostly based for like online coaches, which was kind of weird. But like the guy that started it, Scott Oldford, he's just a fantastic online marketer. And like my thing at first was like, I don't feel like I should be in this room. Like I'm not, at that point I was like, I'm making like $3,000 a month off my business. There's people in this room saying, I remember one exercise in specific where I'm glad we had this exercise because it was like a real kick in the face for it. But like, it also helped me think about things differently where we're all sitting in this guy's living room in LA and he was like, what's the minimum you'll pay yourself per month? And I was like, ooh, I'm making $3,000 a month. Like, this is pretty good. And the first person was like 35 grand. And then the next person was like 40. Someone said 60. And I was like, I'm in the wrong room. Like, I should not be in this room at all. Like, how the hell does somebody pay themselves, 60 grand a month consistently? And like, I still haven't got to that level, like it's a long-term goal, but it helped like almost like stretch my mind to like what was possible, and like I had never met anybody before that were paying themselves even 20 grand a month, you know what I mean, off of their business or through a W-2 job. And I was still pretty early on in that, but it was one of those things where I was like, they got to us and I was like, three grand a month is what I make right now.
Yeah.
And super uncomfortable. But then like the conversations we had after that of like, they're like, hey, because it was me and my brother at the time at that event. And they're like, let's help these guys. Like, let's chat about stuff. And like, from there, like our business within 6 months, grew by 400%, just by meeting those people. So it was kind of one of those things where I was like, I don't think I should be in this room, but like, if you feel like that, you probably should be in the room. And that's how you're going to learn.
I think inside of that is a strong lesson of vulnerability because it is easy to come into that room and pretend like lie. You could have said 15 grand a month and then then you wouldn't have learned anything because everyone would have thought you already knew.
And I'm not going to lie. I'm pretty sure that thought crossed through my mind. Like, I could say something and I don't have to deal with this, but yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, my brother's here. We're going to hold each other accountable. So we're both just going to fucking say where we're at. But yeah, sorry, keep going.
That's one thing about Collective Genius that it doesn't happen. And if it does, like people get gently relieved of that. It's difficult, right? Because I think that's a natural progression. I think everybody feels like they probably don't belong. I certainly did.
Yeah.
But then the second time I'm there, I was like, I do belong. The third time I'm like, this is my place. The fourth time it's like the fourth time is like feet up on the table, like
like I'm comfortable here finally.
Yeah. And it's easy. And the people who I think that's been a strong I think that's been great for me to be vulnerable, to even get a microphone and to get in front of the room and be vulnerable and say, I am struggling with this and I have struggled with that. And people will come in to fill that void for you. They will come in to help you and save you.
Yeah.
And without that, I certainly wouldn't still have a business, So it's there's a lesson inside that lesson. I think that's to be made a point of.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, man.
For sure. Yeah.
Vince, you want to switch us to, since you have the most kids out of all of us, I think you have the same amount as both of us combined, but let's talk about family stuff. You want to head that up, Vince?
Yeah, man. I absolutely freaking love kids. Before real estate, I was actually a teacher. So, I had classrooms of kids. I was a middle school, 5th and 6th grade teacher. And I don't know, like there's just something about seeing on their level, understanding them in a lot of ways, but like it's also a struggle. We're all dads here. It's like they can drive you absolutely crazy in one moment, and then literally 5 seconds later, you're like, "Oh, come cuddle," like.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would just say, like in this business, you mentioned at the very beginning, you live, you breathe real estate. It's kind of what we think about all the time. But like, what do you do to wind down with the family? Do you have things that are like, hey, these are things I do with my kids on the daily, or when they go to bed at night? Like, what's that look like for you?
So I work from home. My office I'm in the front room of my house, and
I'm in the basement of mine. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can hear my kids banging around right now. And so I get to, go hang out at lunch. And if I am burnt out in any given moment, it doesn't matter what time it is. And if there's nothing on the calendar, then I get to go hang out with my kids and my wife. And so I enjoy that on one hand. And on the other hand, I saw something recently that was like, if you are going to constantly choose your balance, it was talking about balance. It was like, if you're going to constantly choose your family, you're going to be unbalanced in your business. If you're going to constantly choose your business, you're going to be unbalanced in your family. And it is difficult, on the other hand, that I need to be doing more, and I want to be in the living room playing with my kids.
Yeah.
So I think it cuts both ways to be here at home. I love the ability to do it, but I also am drawn to leave work when I should be doing work things. Maybe I shouldn't be doing work things. Maybe I should be doing that. Who's to say, right? But I have things to do in here. And there's no question about that. So I think it cuts both ways. But I really enjoy. My kids are just over 2 and almost 9 months. So my kids are very young, and it's a lot of fun. It's fantastic. We eat a lot of meals together. We spend a lot of time together. Sometimes my wife's running errands with them, and it's the middle of the day, and I'll go. So I get to do things like that, and it creates for odd hours at times, because then I'm working to make up for what I didn't do when I should have done it. I'm working, 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. And, that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. I turn my emails off at the end of the day, but Slack stays on. Justin, and Slack, dude, like that thing just keeps bling, 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 and I'll be like cooking dinner, and I'm trying to open up I'm trying to like, focus on the kids, and we got one of them on my leg, and another one's like, Dad, I want some chocolate milk, and the other kid's like, Jackson pushed me. And I remember actually being on a Zoom call as a teacher. This was hilarious, during COVID, and my youngest son at the time was I don't know, he was like 4 or 5 or something like that, but on a Zoom call, and all of a sudden you hear in the background, Parker put his penis on middle C on my piano. And I'm like, oh my God, like, and I didn't have a mic like this that hides all the shenanigans in the background and things like that. But I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
So
what is going on?
There is like, I really honestly have to turn it off with just having so many kids, because they're just always wanting, attention, and Susie's a salon owner. So she's, got her thing that she's doing, and she works, a couple of nights during the week because she has to, right? It's her business.
Yeah.
And then, as her clients are like booked out 3-4 months in advance. And it's just, so a lot of times I'm playing, superhero dad, sometimes, where I'm cooking dinner and also going to the grocery store and responding to texts and Slack and emails, and, responding to social media posts. And it's a lot, like, at the end of the day. But wouldn't trade it for the world, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. So
Eric,
go ahead.
I was to say, Eric Brewer, you talked about him earlier, but he had a really good post that I liked probably a month ago or so. Because like one of my big things that I've always focused on is And kind of the way I look at it is like, I can't be there 100% of the time with my kids as much as I would love to. Like, I mean, there's times where I'm like, no, I need a break. But, like if I could, I would. But the way I kind of look at it is like, even though they can't have 100% of my time, when they do have my time, they should have 100% of me, right? Like I shouldn't be distracted. And I noticed myself occasionally, probably more than occasionally, honestly, where one of my kids would be talking to me and I'd still be on my phone and almost not even realize that I was doing it. And he had a post and he's like, when your kid talks to you, put your phone down. Like your kid deserves to have eye contact with you when you're talking with them and communicating with them. And like just that change alone, like now that he posted it, it was probably like literally like a month ago. And it's like, I think about it all the time now and I notice it every single time where I'm like, oh shit, I'm still on my phone. Like, let me put this down. Like that text can wait. That Slack message can wait. Like my 7-year-old's trying to tell me about her day at school. You know what I mean? So, those little like tricks and tips are super helpful for especially when someone puts it in that, like that easy of a process to follow. Like, you just literally throw your phone down, right? Like it's not hard. It'll take you 30 seconds or a couple minutes, right? But those little things are what I always try and focus on, is like intentionally being available and engaged with my kids when they're there.
Yeah. And I'll you take it a step further. I learned this as a teacher of actually getting on their level, right? And kneeling down to talk to them is super helpful, because we're giants compared to the like a 2, 3, 4, 5-year-old. And talking to them, especially if there's something that's more authoritative in nature, like stop doing that or whatever, but getting down to their level and just getting on one knee and just kind of talking to them does a world of difference on just the communication aspect of it. So like I try to do that with my kids as much as possible, and it's something that just kind of is always in my head, like, all right, get down. Jackson, now he's a teenager, and it's a little bit different.
As tall as you.
Yeah, I actually said something to him the other day and he punched me in the gut. I was like, oh, this is where we're at in this relationship now.
I remember Brewer posted one too, and Eric Brewer is somebody that he's been a coach of mine, mentor. He's somebody that I respect immensely as well. I remember he posted something that made me laugh. I still think about it. He said, when your kids are growing up, you go from dada to daddy to dad to bruh or something.
I get a lot of bruhs, right?
That's the phase I'm in as well. My kids are like, bruh. I'm like, you are 8.
I'm
Why
your
are you
dad.
calling me bruh?
So it's when they call me Vinny, when I really know I'm not paying attention to them. I'm like, hey, Vinny.
No way. No way, kid. Like, something you said is you want to be there all the time, right? And I do too. That's part of the problem, right? Like I want to be out there right now and hanging, playing, chilling, and that's a detriment to the business. And it's not a detriment to life, of course, but it's a detriment to the business. And my approach in the business, and it's kind of always been my approach, and I'm trying to find some sort of happy middle ground where my life can coexist with the business. Whereas while also I want to front load the work and I want to achieve the kind of freedom truly that I want, so that I can coach when the time comes. I know that in 3 or 4 or 5 years, I'm going to want to be coaching every sport year round at every event for all the kids.
Yep.
And we're going to have at least one more and possibly 2. And I know that's going to be a lot. But I want to do that so bad. That's how I want to spend the next, in 3 or 4 years. That's how I want to spend the following 15.
Yep.
And so I have in my mind 3 or 4 years to be overbalanced potentially in the business to get there as fast as possible. So that's a tough balance too. I'm trying to taper more towards coexisting life, between life and business. But that's a tough thing to reconcile.
Yeah,
it is. Yeah, for sure.
It really is.
But we we do what we do for our families too. Like, like you work hard, you sacrifice, you do all the things for them and because of them. And like I didn't have what I have as a kid now. like I ran away from home at 17 years old because I hated my life when I was younger. And so I worked so hard to give my kids what I didn't have. And it just helps me to kind of build that healthy balance of like, no, I'm going to do this, but also I'm going to, be with you. I'm going to show you why I'm doing what I'm doing as well, So yeah, it's tough, but at the end of the day, it's for them.
Yeah. It's been really cool for me with, and Colton, your kids are still pretty young. Vinny, you might have noticed this. I'm not sure, but like I'm noticing because my kids are 13, 8, and almost 7. I said 7, but she's really 6. My, my 2 older kids are like, actively like asking questions about what I do. Like, I think they're starting to realize like my life is not normal compared to the vast majority of people where it's like I can work from home. I don't, I can go and volunteer for a Thanksgiving party at your school on a Tuesday afternoon. And like a lot of dads can't do that. And it's been cool to kind of see them like recognize that that's a little bit different, but also like ask questions like, what do you do? Like why are you here all the time? Like, it's cool. Like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I own a couple businesses. And they're like, oh, so you're like a boss. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's part of it, but it's like really like I have these businesses that really impact people and help people in their businesses. And it's kind of cool to start seeing them think that way of like, because for me, like, I don't know about, I know Vinny said he ran away. I don't even know if you went to college. I'm not even sure. But like,
Who, me?
yeah.
Yeah, I got a master's degree.
Okay. Yeah. So you're smart. I'm not. But like I barely graduated high school, and like I didn't know that there was anything out there that I could do. But it's kind of cool to see my kids recognize that like you can choose what you want to do and have the ability to run a business, and like they'll come up with ideas like, oh, we could do this as a business, and what about this and like this, and it's been really cool to see that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah, that, like I said, I didn't grow up in that environment. My parents both worked W-2 forever, and I didn't really come from a business family. And then I married into this business family. And so I started to get that crash course in thinking that way, having a path to think that way. When I met my wife and when I, started to become a part of this family, and that's been 6 years now. So my education into that type of thinking started to happen when I was in my mid 20s. So I am now, my kids are obviously very young, but I'm looking forward to exactly what you just said. Like, this is the way we think, this is, we're impacting people. We're providing value. That is how money is truly made. That is the core of it. We are solving problems, like that is the answer to those questions. An answer that I never got, right? An answer we didn't know was out there.
Yeah. That's so funny because one of my one of my son's friends, his dad, I think he works at like, I don't know, Sherwin-Williams or something like that with paint stuff, and he was like, he's like, my friend said like his dad's always gone and like always busy, and that was one of the first times I think that came up, was like, how are you here all the time? Like, what do you do? So it's a cool thing. Like once that starts happening and they start piecing things together, at first it was like, why do you work so much? You always do so much work. And now it's kind of like, you're here a lot more than what I hear from friends, So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's exactly the language I want to hear as my kids get older too.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
Leading by example. Well, cool. Anything else you have before we wrap up, Vincent? You want to cover, Colton? Anything that we missed?
Yeah, you got any questions for us, or?
I'm sure we could probably talk all day and keep rolling.
And I'm not trying to rush this to a close either. I'm just
either. Yeah,
just curious. Yeah.
What do you guys want from? So another club, another group. The only other group I'm a part of is the Whale Club, headed by Paul Sparks, Steve Trang.
I'm hearing that a lot lately.
Yeah, Dan Nicholson. It really, what they really try to do, and I really love it. And they've impacted me a lot. And this is where I say I'm trying to find a middle ground between the heavy work balance and the lifestyle balance and the coexistence. And it all kind of starts with something called your solvable problem. And the solvable problem is, with specificity, what do you want from life? And how do you get it on your terms and on your timeline? And really exploring that, going through the process with the group and with, the leaders of the group, who are excellent guides in getting to these things. And it's, what do you really want from life, and how do you get there, and what does it actually look like? Put numbers to it and put a vision to it, instead of just saying, I want to be big. I want my business to be bigger all the time. I want my business to do more revenue, more, bigger. The thing is always, they talk about getting closer versus just having more.
Yeah.
And so, what are you trying to get closer to? Is the question that I would pose to you. What, for me, some of the specifics are like, monetarily, and from a even potentially shallower standpoint, is like, I've always wanted a supercar, right? I want a lake house. I do want these things, but I also want to coach sports, and I want to have the time freedom to go to everything that my kids do. So my solvable problem is not even fully formulated, but I'm going through the process of formulating it. And once I achieve this, and I solve my solvable problem, my life will be what I've always envisioned. Instead of just saying, I want to be the CEO, because younger me just thought, I want to be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, and and I'm going to be there by 24. Like,
yeah, I had those thoughts too. I'm like, $10 million a year by 25. Like,
absolutely. And now it's like, okay, well, I want a supercar. What car? And how much is it? And how much is it a month? And I want a lake house. Okay, where is it? And by when?
Yep.
And knocking those things out and really looking to achieve, that is something I'm like, those are a couple of examples of mine. But if I would have posed that question to you, what are you trying to get closer to?
So that's a really good question. And it's funny. I work on a similar concept in a slightly different manner, but it's pretty much the same thing. So like my personal coach that I work with here in St. Louis, he works with, I'm actually speaking at his event this weekend, and it's Choose Your Destiny is basically what it's called. And it's 2 days of like helping people truly like get to the root of what they want their life to be, how they want it to look, and what that, and ultimately putting the plan forth to get that out there. So like what we focus on is having a vision for what our life is, and focusing on the 3 C's, which is clarity, commitment. Oh shit, I forgot the third one. That's a great plug that I'm having a brain fart right now.
We can just edit it and make it seem like you said them really
fast. I know, right?
Yeah.
Clarity, certainty, and commitment. There we go. Sorry, I had a brain fart. But like getting clear on what that is, being absolutely certain that you can attain it, and then the commitment behind that and the daily actions that point to that. Vince, I'm going to mute you for a second.
Dude, I don't know what my dog is doing. I apologize.
You're good.
I was going like this. I was like, is that my dog?
No, that's
I can go up there and beat her real quick.
What kind of dog do you have?
It's a beagle dachshund. She
likes to fight you.
Like it could be I got a lawn company that comes out and fertilizes and seeds and all. Who knows who's out there right now?
Yeah. You'll know when someone's there for sure.
Oh yeah.
But to kind of go back to your question, like I have like a 2-page vision written down that I put together over the summer, and it includes like 5 different areas of my life. Like, what do I want my health to look like? Finances, personal relationships, monetary type stuff, and then freedom, right? Like how do I want my life to look like on that? So for me, like I think the solvable problem for me is I want to be as flexible and have as much freedom as I can while running businesses at the same time. So finding that balance, finding that the systems and the processes to make that a possibility and make that effective is kind of what I work on. And what I do is I'll be honest, I'm not perfect at it, but I try and read that vision as consistently as possible, think on it constantly, and it does evolve for me, because there's times I've put stuff in there where I'm like, I don't really want that anymore. You know what I mean? But like, I know for me, like I want a cabin in the North Cascade Mountains in Washington. It's like one of my all-time favorite places. Like that's the place I want to be able to go whenever I want, have that time freedom and that ability to go there. But a big part of my vision is like, I want to impact as many people as I can to be better versions of themselves. And like, I like helping and coaching others and teaching people how to do things and how to grow through. Like, for me, like most of the business problems I've had have been mental or personal problems that I just had to work through, right? Like, if I had a fear of money, I'm not going to take any risks in my business. I talked about this on a podcast I was on last week. And it was like, that was a big part of my journey at first, was like, I had a huge fear of losing everything and going back to broke and going to have to go back to, a $150 a month car payment or whatever, like the little Nissan Versa I used to have. So like, I had to work through those types of fears and understand like where those came from. And ultimately they still surface, right? It's still something that comes up, but working through that stuff is allowing me to get closer and closer to that vision.
The Whale Club would challenge you to assign values to those things. You say, like, for example, you say, I want to impact as many as people as possible. When the Whale Club would ask you how many,
okay.
Or it would challenge you to come up with how many. And then it would say, by when. And same thing for the cabin. It would say, what does the cabin look like? How much is it a month? And, where and by when?
And I have the property in mind. I go there. It's an Airbnb I rent, and I'm like, I'm buying this at some point. Like, it's about $400,000.
Have you pitched them? Have you made an offer?
Not yet. I have their cell number though, so I need to. We just got back from there in October, but it's like, it's 1,200 square feet, like nothing crazy, but it's like in the perfect place. Like it's absolutely amazing. So there are some parts like that I do have that clarity, but others I don't. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
What about you, Vince?
Would you if you did buy it, would you continue to use it as an Airbnb?
Probably. Yeah. I would have it as an Airbnb, but then have it as like, there's certain times that are blocked that like I'm going. You know what I mean? Like, I've only been there in October, and it's really pretty, and I know summers are really pretty too. So I'd like to go there in the summer. Would love to go there like over Christmas, be in the mountains and all that kind of stuff. Like snowmobiling's a big thing out there. Once it snows, like everyone's on snowmobiles. So, but yeah, we want that. My wife and I and our kids, we're big outdoorsy people. Like, we take our camper out all the time. We try and go out and hike and do all this kind of stuff. So and there's something, I don't know, there's something special about that place that I really love. So that's definitely one that I know I want that house. I know the address. I know exactly where it's at. Roughly $400,000 right now. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see. But I don't have a date of when I'm going to buy it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to think about this more, and I wrote it down. What is my solvable problem or problems, or what is my solvable opportunity, I should say.
Sure.
There you go.
Yeah, I like that.
Bring it full circle.
Yeah. I mean, I talked to Justin about this a ton. I definitely want to do more deals in 2024. Being newer to this space. So like, my background's military and a teacher. So, coming into the real estate space, and even coming to Ryan when I first started it, and he's like, "You're not ready," and just threw me a book and said, "Read this first." So being in this space, I definitely want to do more. It's super exciting. It's something I can see myself doing. To allow me to do my other solvable problem is to travel more. Being in the military for 8 years, I saw all kinds of places in the world. And I miss it. Like I miss going and experience other cultures and all that kind of stuff. And traveling requires money. It requires time, so that's a big piece of it. And when you have 5 kids, you want to take those along with you. That just 5X's your amount to spend on that. I'm originally from Alaska. I have a ton of family in Alaska, so it's difficult to take my family to Alaska. So usually if I go, it's me and 1 kid, and the other kids will get jealous. And, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. What's that?
So just drive. It's not that far from St. Louis.
Well, I've actually thought about getting, an RV and taking the summer because, we can work from anywhere.
Yeah.
And just, taking 3 weeks to drive from St. Louis to Alaska in an RV and stopping at different places. And then,
I told you can take mine if you ever want to.
I'm scared of the pull behind.
I get that. I understand that. Yeah, no, it's an acquired, I don't want to say skill, but like everything takes 10 times longer because you're driving. Yeah. You feel everything like, you're going 55 or 60 max, you're burning through gas like crazy.
Yeah. So that's where I'm at. How many deals I want to make in 2024, I don't know yet. I don't know, what I can handle, that, what the capacity is. I do know where I want to buy and what I want in most cases, but yeah.
All right. Well, let's work through that. You and I can work through that on planning that out.
This is the book so Dan Nicholson wrote this book, and he is also an arbiter of the group, Rigging the Game. It says how to achieve financial certainty, navigate risk, and make money on your own terms. The group is based largely off this book, and it's a definitely highly recommended read.
Is it an Amazon buy or?
Yeah, I think so.
Like normal places.
Or you could reach out to Paul Sparks. He always has I think he gave this to me for free. That man has 10,000 copies. So
I'm pretty sure he gave me one in January, and I didn't get a chance to read it yet.
Connect with Paul Sparks, and if you're not gonna go this path, which I would recommend to anybody for anything, even W-2 workers, I just think it for anybody, I think it's important to go through he always says the process is the shortcut. And I think it's important to go through it to achieve the kind of clarity that I think everybody can benefit from in life. For all of us, because we're obviously all highly driven people, and with that comes a lot of common problems. And this addresses a lot of them at their core, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Very cool.
So I would highly recommend connecting with Paul Sparks on this or on anything. He is another person I respect immensely.
Yeah. So. It's funny. He was a longtime client of Ballpoint for probably 2 years. And then he started doing some other stuff. And it was funny. Like I always saw Bunny Hill Properties was his company. And I always loved his logo and everything like that. And then I saw him at CG in January, and I was like, are you like the Paul Sparks that I've known but not known for 2 years? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, damn, that's funny. Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We'll wrap today, guys. But Colton, I appreciate you hopping on, man. This was a lot of fun, even just to get to know you a little bit better. And, I know we'll see each other all the time at CG now. But, appreciate you having on, man. And this was a great time.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it. This was fantastic. Getting to meet you and Justin, talking some more. I mean, I'm looking forward to talking again.
Yeah, if I'm ever in Phoenix to visit family, I'll hit you up as well.
Yeah, come on out. We'll play some bad golf. Yeah.
There you go.
People are like, "Do you play golf?" I'm like, "Poorly." Like,
like I still lose most of the balls.
Golf. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. See you guys.
See ya.